Welcome back to Red Horn Society. Today I wanted to go over a topic about accuracy with the recurve and the traditional bow. A lot of folks nowadays are starting to get to the point where they want to explore the bent stick, the traditional recurve, and I'm all for it. There's nothing else like having a piece of wood, a bowstring, and an arrow to make you feel like how your ancestors felt for millennia upon millennia. With this bow, all it involves is you, the bow, and the arrow. No sights, no adjustments, no windage, just pure T instinct. Now, a lot of folks get confused on exactly how you aim this bow. And to be quite frank, it's pretty much well along the lines of how a baseball pitcher throws a perfect strike down the pipe to the catcher, or how an NFL quarterback knows exactly how to put the football in the breadbasket to the receiver in the back of the end zone to throw a fade route. You don't have crosshairs or any mechanical instruments to be able to help you achieve that. At the end of the day, you just have yourself, your body, and the football or the baseball, whatever it might be, and your body naturally compensates to put that ball where you envision for it to go. I'm going to show you a couple of tips and some tricks that I've utilized along the way to help me with that. But in essence, it boils down essentially to focus. When it comes time for me to take aim or take target on whatever it is that I'm trying to hit at that time, I focus on that teeny tiny little point. And when I take aim down my arrow shaft, I'm telling myself that aim small, miss small, aim small, miss small. When I'm aiming, I'm using the body's subconscious, so it'll create a muscle memory inside my body to know exactly how to put that arrow on point. It's in a sense like you're willing that arrow to go where you would like it to go. So when I draw back and I'm taking sight down my arrow shaft, essentially I'm just using my arrow shaft to stay on an even plane. But what I'm actually doing is allowing my body to subconsciously aim where I want that arrow to go. Now, it's not as witchy as it might sound. It's not hocus pocus and magic, but it is a marvel of the human body. The human body is a very marvelous instrument in the sense that it can compensate through means of muscle memory to achieve things of that nature. Now, are you going to go out the first time you've ever shot a bare bow and shoot 50 bullseyes in a row? Hell no. But I have seen people like Byron Ferguson and other trick shooters and very skilled shooters in the traditional archery form be able to shoot quarters out of the air, be able to shoot apple off somebody's head, though I don't advocate that at home. Obviously you need to be a trained professional. And the way they do that is through repetition. You have to shoot this bow an extreme amount of times for you to become proficient with it, to the effect that you can actually start to achieve very highly accurate results. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and go down onto the range and show y'all some of the techniques that I use. So on this target, essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out a portion of this target. This is just a silhouette of a white-tailed deer, liver, lung, and heart. And so essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a target on this particular deer. But I'm not going to pick a big target. I'm not going to say, okay, I want to get it in this lung, or okay, I want to get it in this liver or this heart. I'm going to pick a specific target on one of these particular organs that I'd like to target. Like I said, aim small, miss small. So on the heart, it's written here, heart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pick out this R, and that's where I'm going to be aiming the entire time. My goal when I draw my bow back is to have my arrow finish in that R. So when I go back to my shooting position, that's where I'm going to be focused on. Come on, let's go back over there. So I'm going to go ahead and display what I was just relaying to y'all about picking out a small target on exactly what it is that you're trying to hit. In my case, it's going to be the R on the heart portion of that heart. So I'm going to aim for that R. I'm going to focus on that R, and I'm going to allow my body to subconsciously will that arrow into that target area. Now the whole time I'm drawing, I'm focusing, because at the end of the day, my goal is to put that arrow exactly where I intend it to be. Pretty close. Now I'm shooting with set. When I refer to a set on my videos, I never shoot any more than 3 arrows at one time. To me, I shoot 3 arrows, I go, I retrieve my arrows. It gives my arm a chance to get some blood work back into it, so I don't start to shoot with bad habits and develop bad habits over time. Now those are all 3 kill shots right there. And with that being said, at the end of the day, I aim small and I miss small. So if I have a target that I'm aiming small, if I miss it by 1/2 inch or a full inch, guess what? I'm still in that kill area because I've aimed small and I missed small. And that's something I definitely want y'all to take away from this. Always aim small, miss small. Now that we're going to start aiming small and miss small, what I want y'all to start focusing on now is some of the right hand and left hand technique of the bow, and some of the things that you can do to fit your particular liking or the style that you like to shoot. Now there's 2 predominantly different styles with the right hand, and one of those styles is either going to be what they call 3 fingers underneath or split finger. I've always shot 3 fingers underneath. I taught myself how to shoot a bow years ago. Nobody really taught me, so I developed my own style. However, there's probably better techniques out there, but with the accuracy levels that I've achieved, I feel confident in my style, but it is more of a 3 fingers underneath. But there's 2 ways to shoot a bow. Either what they call split finger, where you have the knock of the arrow split the index and the pointer finger of the right hand, and when you go to shoot, it's typically something like this. Or what they call 3 fingers underneath. 3 fingers underneath is exactly how it sounds. You place all 3 fingers underneath the knock of the arrow, and when you draw, same as before. There are certain speculators that feel as though that split finger bow shooting is a little quieter than 3 fingers underneath. I think that's just up to speculation. And there are certain groups that feel as though that split finger technique is the true technique of traditional archers. They feel that if you shoot 3 fingers underneath, you're lesser than. For what reason? I don't know. Maybe they consider advantageous. Most folks that shoot split fingered in the draw, and I want to get a little lower to this so you can kind of see my motion, their draw ends when their middle finger touches the corner of their mouth. So when they go into full draw, they know that they're at full draw when their finger touches the corner of their mouth. Myself, when I shoot 3 fingers underneath, I have a very high draw on the cheekbone. I tend to sight down my arrow shaft probably more than a lot of traditional archers, but that's my style. That's what's beautiful about archery. There's so many different ways to do it. So when I draw, I come to basically where my pointer finger is just on top of my cheekbone. And that's how I've always drawn. There's also certain people who come down a little further down and they use the string and the tip of the arrow as a form of aiming, and it looks something like this. However, that's never been my style. So I've always chose to shoot 3 fingers underneath, and I have a slight degree of cant to my aiming of the arrow. Canting meaning, say, this is straight up and down. I cant my bow about 10, maybe 15 degrees to the right-hand side. When I first started shooting a bow, I came from the compound world. And coming from the compound world, the bow is always straight up and down in a vertical sense. So I started to incorporate that into my traditional archery. However, I always found that my arrows were always a little high and to the left. And I started to keep my bow about 10 to 15 degrees over to the right, and it instantaneously went away, and it's never come back since. So I've chosen to go that route. So when I come to full draw, as opposed to being straight up and down, I always draw with a little arc to my shot. A little, what they call cant, or canting. So when I go to shoot my arrow, and I've also felt that when I can't, it gives me a little better picture through the sight window. So those are a couple of ways that you can incorporate into your right hand motion of it. Now I want to go over your left hand motion. With your left hand, basically the whole point to consistent, accurate archery is to let the bow do all of the work. Only thing that you need to be focused on is pulling the bowstring back and aiming. But you don't want to be the reason why this piece of equipment becomes inaccurate. So essentially, what you want to do when you're aiming is have as little bit of impact on the holding of the bow that you can, so that at the time of the release, you're not jerking the bow this way or that way. Now, I'm embellishing that to some degree so that you understand what I'm talking about. But there's folks that when they've gorilla gripped this bad boy, and when they let it go, it comes off to a certain degree. If you do that, it'll change your trajectory of the arrow. So that's definitely what you don't want to do. Essentially, when you draw the bow back, on a compound bow, I keep my hand open as far as I can. On a recurve bow, I tend to just keep my thumb and the slightest bit of my pointer finger on the bow. And I want to keep as little pressure on it in the handle end as I can. And the only reason I'm keeping any pressure on it is so it doesn't fly out of my hands. So when I go to release it, I don't want to have any kind of extra motion with my left hand that can change the trajectory of the arrow. Now also with my left hand, another technique I've seen people use is where they'll wrap their finger around. However, I just like to try to keep it as open as I can. Now the last portion of it that I want to point out is your right hand technique upon the release. So when I pull this bow back to full draw and I release it, subconsciously in my head, what I want my hand to do is to simply let go of the strings and come straight back. And I'll show you an example of that here. Let go of the strings and come straight back. There's a lot of people out there that when they let go of that bow, they start doing a little hello wave, how are you doing? They do funky things with their right hand as opposed to just letting it come straight back. Yet again, altering the trajectory of the arrow so it's no longer consistent and accurate. So that's something that I've always tried to remind myself, consciously and subconsciously, that when I pull back my bow, and there's been times where I go a couple months without shooting a bow, and the first couple of shots I forget that, and I go, oh, let my hand come straight back. And as soon as you start to do that, you'll also notice an immediate impact on your archery accuracy. So let me go ahead and demonstrate. And I'm not going to embellish it or anything, I'm just going to show you a normal shot. Just like so, and that was a dead arrow straight down the middle. So take these tips, learn them, practice them, incorporate them into your everyday archery, pass it along. Teach the youth out there so this tradition keeps going on for future generations to come. Keep liking our videos. Thank you for all the heartfelt support that we've gotten thus far. Like our Facebook page and keep preserving America. Red Horn Society out.